Well, we know one thing. It's going to be difficult for Ohio State to improve upon that CFP ranking. We will discuss that and more. And, of course, Penn State in the rearview mirror, Purdue up ahead here at Buckeyes Live right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by. You know the drill. Comments, questions, welcome. They're in the chat. We've got Tony Girdman right next to me. We've got Steve Hellwagon down below. Steve with Bucknuts 247 Sports. Of course, check out Tony's work at BuckeyeHuddle.com and the Buckeye Weekly podcast as I try to fend off phone calls. All right. Personal phone calls. All right. Appreciate y'all being here. Tony, how's it going?
Going well. No complaints, but it is only 11 o'clock.
Absolutely. Well, I've got complaints already, but we won't go into those. Steve, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Trying to catch up on some sleep and getting ready for this trip to West Lafayette for Ohio State and Purdue.
Whoa, what's going on here? People are I have no idea how I lost control. I guess we'll just keep talking until I can figure out what just happened. There we go. And where my guys? There they are.
There it is.
All right.
Don't touch anything.
It isn't me. Trust me.
Fortunately, Tony, the Ohio State offense is a little more functional than my StreamYard skills right now, especially the passing attack. We've seen this transformation, kind of this unveiling, this peeling back of the playbook week by week and letting Julian Sayin take over the offense more and more. And it's working out fairly well.
It is. And you see there are certain plays, like there's a play against Penn State where it's 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and Ohio State goes 5 wide and everybody's covered. And Julian just throws it like 16, 18 yards back shoulder to Jeremiah. And there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the part of the problem with trying to defend this Ohio State offense, where you could defend it perfectly and then it doesn't matter, or you could be entirely prepared for what you're going to see. And then at halftime, Ohio State sees something that they change something up completely and design a play that they hadn't run at all in practice or in camp, like they did with the first deep shot in the 3rd quarter to Carnell Tate. Ryan Day talked about that on Tuesday, where it was something that they had seen in the first half, and if they got that look again, they'd want to run that. So they basically just drew it up at halftime. And so on one hand, you can cover things perfectly. On another hand, you can be entirely ready for what you're going to see or, what you've seen on film. And then, boom, there's going to be something new that you didn't see on film, or that, we actually did cover this well and it didn't matter because Ohio State still converted. And, that's a testament to the players being able to take what's drawn up in dirt and out onto the field just via conversation. It's been impressive to watch as the offense grows.
It's a pretty passing game, Steve. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, but you just wonder how sustainable it is. I mean, you can't live and die by throwing the ball deep, but if they can't stop you from throwing the ball deep, you're stupid and not keep throwing the ball deep. So they hit one and they said, let's go back to this. And they hit another one. And they said, let's go back to this again. And they hit another one. So I think they had 5 pass plays of 20 or more yards in the game. I think there was a 29-yard pass to Ennis as well. So yeah, it was a great showing, I think, by the pass game. The running game, they did break one 51-yard run with Bo Jackson, but you take that one out of the equation and they still averaged right around 2.9 or 3 yards per carry on the rest of the running game. So there's no consistency involved yet with the run game. And that's week 8. I mean, at some point, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it is a duck. And this run game looks like a duck right now. So a wounded, not very good duck. So if that's the one Achilles heel for this team, as long as they don't call an overabundance of running plays, nobody will get hurt. So there you go.
Well, and it's the deep shots are good, but they're going to live and die on the 8-yard RPOs that are essentially the running game and converting those. I do wonder, and I hope to ask Ryan Day about this tonight, is that when you get to November and the weather begins to change, how much that impacts what you want to do and what you plan on doing. Because I think we all remember the Northwestern game a couple of years ago, or when rain gets involved, how does that impact the ability to execute the passing game, which I think that's always the concern. That's one of the reasons Gene Smith a couple of years ago suggested, hey, why not play the first round playoff game in Lucas Oil, because he's looking for the best conditions for the Ohio State offense at that time.
And I understand that philosophy and that approach. I also don't know that it should be verbalized to the masses.
That's funny.
I don't know if you guys came across this stat. Julian Sayin joins Geno Smith as the only quarterbacks in the last 50 years of college football to hit on 85%, 300 yards, at least 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions 3 consecutive games.
Goodness gracious.
I mean,
what? Let me jot that down. What was it again? 85%.
85%, 300 yards through the air, at least 3 touchdowns, and no INTs for 3 consecutive games.
Good Lord. And the other guy was
Geno Smith.
Geno Smith,
who's still playing, right?
Yep.
Is he still hanging on? Yeah. Wherever he
That's
is.
pretty good stat.
Whoever the latest is.
I mean, people want to debate. I'm sure we'll get into the playoff rankings, but they talk about Ohio State. Well, they've got the best defense and they've got the best quarterback. He's got the highest completion percentage and the best efficiency rating. Now, people at Indiana will say, well, Mendoza is right there, and he's accounted for 29 touchdowns. Mendoza, he's been outstanding. So, it's not number one by a wide margin, but still, I believe those are some of the things that have put Ohio State on top of Indiana at this point.
What is interesting is some of the margins that Julian Sayin does have are pretty incredible. And I'm just trying to scroll through and find where I tweeted this out. But his completion percentage right now is, he's number 1. And I believe Fernando Mendoza is number 2. And the gap between 1 and 2 is the same as 2 and 45. To give you an idea of how far advanced Julian Sayin is compared to everybody else. And, you can go through his situational stats, and he's 19 of 20 on passes inside his own 20-yard line. And the one incompletion was against Texas to throw to Max Clare, where Max Clare wasn't looking and it looked like he was out there blocking, or else he'd be, 20 of 20 or whatever. And they're just things like that. You can just go up and down. Like in the third quarter this year, he's completing 86.7% of his passes. He's 52 of 60. You go through, he threw 3 incompletions against Penn State. 2 of those were throwaways, and 1 was perhaps a drop. Like, it's all insane stuff we've not seen before. Bill Rabinowitz asked Ryan Day about Tuesday, is Julian Sayin the most accurate quarterback? Like, what does he do that's better than any of your other quarterbacks? Like, is he more accurate than CJ Stroud? And Day's like, well, I'm not going to say that and get in trouble with CJ Stroud, so that's fine for you, but I can't do that. But like, we're just seeing stuff that's really, really impressive. And he keeps raising his completion percentage each game. Like, that's eventually going to have to start going back a little bit, but he's going to finish with some of the best numbers we've ever seen in Ohio State in his first year as a starter.
My apology. We've got a family member dealing with some health issues, and so I had to jump off there real quick to apologize if the phone kept ringing, but I couldn't figure out how to mute the phone or mute the computer. So there you go.
No issues there. Ryan Dawes has a super chat for us that we will keep in our back pocket for the Purdue segment. Comments and questions are welcome, folks. So, walk like a duck, quack like a dog, talk like a duck, everything else, whatever the lines are that Steve spit out better than I did. it still needs to be worked on. We still need to do something here to get a running game going that's reliable. I'll put it this way before you guys can go off on this one. Short yardage may be the most important. And then after that, the ability when it's in a playoff game, 31-27 with 4 minutes left in the game, to march it down the field, a la stopping Penn State at the goal line and then just keeping the football for the rest of the game, basically, against one of the best defenses in the country. Those type of situations, not necessarily that it has to be beautiful, 25 carries for 150 yards, 6 yards carry, because it's just, an unstoppable running attack from start to finish throughout the game. But key situations, short yardage, end of the game, ice the game.
Yep. That's what the name of the game is. And I think you've hit on it, that at this point, that's what we're coming down to, is they've got to be able to run the ball in those situations. And, they're close. They're not too far from where they need to be. It's just, it hasn't entirely clicked together just yet. And teams are defending them in a certain way, and they have to take what the defense gives them, which I think is the screen game to the running back, the drags to the tight end, the cross, the seam, whatever, to get the ball to the tight ends, because they're running free. And same with the running backs coming out of the backfield. So take what the defense gives you, and don't try to force the round peg into the square hole like they did last year against Michigan. If they can avoid that type of thinking, and just speaking in generalities, because these games are just, so intricate, chess match type games. I think one of the things that they threw in this past week was some late motioning and late shifting before the snap that really kind of puts the defense on its heels. Like, well, okay, this is what we thought we saw, so now we're getting this. How should we react? Type thing. And I think that is another way that they can take advantage of things, in addition to just drawing plays, in the grass like they did last week with that deep pass. They said they installed it at halftime and said, hey, be ready. We may call this. We didn't rep it all week, but it's there. And I think that's the one where Coach Day yelled, got him. You can hear it on the audio, right, as the receiver, gets behind the defense. So it's fun to watch when things are clicking like that.
And in terms of the stuff that we're seeing from the running game, you're seeing some of the loaded pistol stuff where you have two tight ends on either side of Julian Sayin as potential lead blockers for the running game. So I think that's helpful. I also think that the passing game is so crisp that it's just as effective as the running game. Like when they threw the diamond formation and had 4 guys off to the left, and they had Jeremiah Smith all by himself with one corner and then a safety higher over top. Are you more likely to pick up 4 yards running the ball at that point, or throwing it to Jeremiah Smith when a corner is 8 yards off of him and the safety is 15 yards away? Like that's easy money with the way this passing game is going. And 11 targets to Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate last week for 11 receptions for 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. If the ball doesn't hit the ground, it's essentially a handoff. So just consider those 2 guys part of the running game as well.
Yeah, that pretty much works. If the ball doesn't hit the ground, it's pretty much a safe deal, just as much as a handoff.
I mean, it's a safe, like,
for now.
Yeah, at least for now. But it's like the air raid thing. It's all of these short passes. Not many air raids have ever won a national championship. I don't know that any, but I will say Ohio State's right now 4.64 yards per carry. LSU won national championship in 2019 at 4.88 yards per carry. So like you can do this with a really, really effective passing game and a just good enough running game.
And Ohio State's defense is much better than LSU's of 2019.
Definitely.
And so I'm guessing that that's kind of the low bar there if you're pointing out LSU of 2019.
Well, and that was just one that was brought up recently in terms of, because the heavy passing. But I mean, you can look at, I'm going to assume most national champions are better than that. Like if I go look at Alabama right now in 2020, they were, 5, which not a lot better. Who won in 2021? Was that Georgia. So has Alabama won it since 2020?
No.
Okay, so must be why Nick Saban decided to retire. But like Georgia, Georgia was a passing game when Ohio State played them in 2022 in terms of like they were a lot of short passing and the running game was just okay. Now they were effective at it, but in 2022, Georgia rushing for 5.5, so that's a good number. But Ohio State has rushed for 5 or 6 yards a carry in years where they didn't get it done because the defense didn't get it done.
While we're on this passing game, we might as well stick with Julian Sayin because this is at the point of the season where Heisman talk actually means something. And unless his teammate wants to take it away from him, I don't know how well, I shouldn't say this. I haven't taken a deep dive and looked across the country and dove into the numbers because I'm not a Heisman guy. For as many years as I've been watching it, and for as much as I jumped through the ceiling when Eddie George won it in 1995 and used to care about it so much, I haven't watched the ceremony probably in 10 years. But he seems to be the front runner and should be.
I'll say this. If he beats Michigan and beats Indiana, nobody else is winning that. Like, and plays as well as you would expect him to play. He doesn't have to complete 85% of his passes, but they did launch their Heisman websites for Jeremiah and Julian Sayin this past week. And yet the biggest campaign is going to be the Michigan game. And then you'll see what's after that, because if you can get past Michigan, and then you have Fernando Mendoza against Julian Sayin, that's just going to be it's going to be for the Heisman. It's going to be for the Big Ten. They're going to try to wrap it all up. And those two are higher in passer ratings and numbers than Ty Simpson is at this point. Ty Simpson's not a top 10 passer rating guy. And he's I think they're trying to make something more of him. And yes, he has one interception thrown this year, but it's like they're trying to make Ty Simpson happen. And Julian Sayin and Fernando Mendoza just keep happening.
Yeah, I think that it would be, I don't know, are there many redshirt freshmen who've ever won it? I mean, that's kind of an interesting thought.
Johnny Manziel and then Jameis Winston.
Wow. Both in
back to back.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's pretty rare for somebody that, I mean, to do it in their first year as a starter, first year as really even playing. I mean, he really didn't. He had a handful of snaps last year. For somebody to come in and do it in their first year where they've had meaningful playing time is really amazing. And we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. Obviously, there is, for Ohio State, 4 games left to play. Although the next 3, all 3 of them are against teams with losing records. These are chances for Ohio State and for Julian Sayin to pile up some statistics. But I think Dave Biddle asked right out of the gate yesterday about juggling getting the statistics you need to win the Heisman Trophy against winning, what you need to do for the team for the balance of the season. There were people mad that they were up 24 points last week and didn't put Lincoln Kienholz in to run the last series or whatever. And, Ryan Day is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. If he takes Sayin out early in the fourth quarter, well, he's not trying to win the Heisman. It's like, Jesus, that winning the Heisman was not what we set out to do at the beginning of the season. It'd be nice to do it as a byproduct of what they're trying to do, but it's not goals 1 through 5 by any means. So, and it's been a long time, 19 years since Ohio State's had a guy that's won it. So I think Ohio State's due, certainly. And, most of the other top contending schools have had it here in recent years. So did Georgia have one at all here in this run? But I don't think they did. But I think Alabama did Sunshine Lawrence win it at Clemson?
No.
Wasn't
So
Bryce
Clemson,
Young a redshirt freshman as well?
Bryce Young
2021.
might have been. He might have been if he hadn't played much in 2020.
Yeah, because
Mac Jones was the starter. I thought he was a redshirt freshman. Maybe not. Maybe. Because
this is something I saw recently.
only threw
So
like 5 passes.
Did Winston win it at Clemson?
Deshaun Watson? No.
Or Deshaun Watson, I'm sorry.
Finished second, I believe, to
Second,
Lamar
okay.
Jackson.
well, the thing that we also can consider is that in 2020 everybody redshirted, technically. So
Yeah.
but I believe it looked like he played in a handful of games. But Tim Tebow was the first second-year player to win it in 2007. So it's certainly not something that is done often, but is being happening more and more now, because it's like before it was almost like you weren't allowed to win it until you were older. You paid your dues,
Yes. Herschel Walker, 1980 national champion, best back in football in a running sport, and couldn't win the Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Had a better season as a freshman than he did as a junior, but won it as a junior. But yeah, that's how it was viewed at the time. Now we transition to Jeremiah Smith, the other candidate, and you have to watch the guy play. If you're going to vote for Jeremiah Smith, it's because it's not that you just looked at a stat sheet, because although his stats, and they have to be extremely good to warrant consideration, they're not like eye-popping ridiculous stats. And obviously it's warmed up as the season's gone on, as they have turned to the deep passing game. But that's going to be a vote for, I believe this guy is the best player in America. And that's what I'm being asked to put down on a sheet of paper, is best player in America, regardless of the stats being just really good or eye-popping.
Yeah, and I think that's why he's not going to win it. Everybody can consider him the best player in a nation, but then when it comes time to vote for the Heisman, they'll probably put him second or third on their ballots, so that they can, so that you can reward the people that are producing. Like Devontae Smith, when he won it, just playing wide receiver, no like special teams or anything like that, he had 117 catches for 1,856 yards and 23 touchdowns. Like what Jeremiah Smith is going to do is he's going to be in the top 12 in like receiving yards per game and top 5 in touchdowns. He may win the Biletnikoff based on he's the best receiver, but there are going to be receivers with better numbers. That's just, that's just going to be the case. But where would you draft these guys? Well, then, that's another question.
Yeah, and Devontae Smith also missed 2 games because of the rescheduling of the games.
He was incredible. Yeah, and he was
amazing.
Yes.
He was amazing.
So you prorate that at a 13-game season at 117 catches. He's averaging just under 10 catches a game. He would have caught more like 135 in a 15-game season.
That's absurd.
With like 30 touchdowns. Like Barry Sanders numbers.
Speaking of numbers, I'm going to complain about mine. If you guys will let me drone on for like 15 seconds here, because
I have a thought on this too when you're done. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to go to my bad beat weekend is what I'm going to go to. So I don't know that anyone can get this unlucky, and there's probably a handful of people in the chat that have already heard me bellyache about this, but 2 misses by a half a point. Let's see, Stanford in 15, they lose by, or 14.5, they lose by 15. And then the other one was Virginia Tech, 11.5, lose by 12. Well, that happens all the time. You lose games, predictions by a half a point, but also Cal's getting 6. They're down 3. It's the last freaking play of the game, and they throw a pick 6 and lose by 10. And, the Gunnar Stockton kneel down at the 1-yard line. Yes, that was the smart football play, but I had Georgia covering. They're up 4. He's
a lot of people pissed about that.
Leaning over the end zone practically. And he pulled it back from me. So I still went 12-7 against the spread, despite 4 just brutal bad beats there. So get my picks, folks, on Patreon. I can't have bad luck like that again next week. And even if I did 12-7, that'll work.
Yeah.
Plus, it's not your fault. It's their fault. It's everybody else's fault that are screwing it up for you.
Yes. And we're not mentioning the ones where I may have gotten, a little lucky too.
Yeah. I post mine on Thursday or Friday. I usually do about 25 to 30 games. I do all the Big Ten games, most of the top 25, and then rivalry games or anything else of note. It could be 2 unranked teams playing each other, but if it's a couple of named brand teams, we'll throw it in there. But 8-21-1 against the spread last week is my worst week that I can remember in forever. So I'm due for a bounce back week. If I could flip those numbers to 21-8, I think I'd be pretty happy. But thankfully, I didn't put any money on any of this stuff, so that's good. My account is zeroed out right now, and I think I'm going to leave it that way for the time being.
8-21.
10 years.
Oof.
8.
And you want to be my latex salesman? No,
yeah, and I was like 30 games over 500 before that. Now I'm only like 11 games over 500. So, this
Steve,
sucks.
if you want to have a good record, I would advise not picking 30 games a week. I kind of do the same thing, not to that extreme. I'm usually in the 20-22 range, but I've been advised by betting types, odds makers, and so forth. You don't pick this many games if you want to have a good record.
Yeah,
but it's fun. It's fun.
Yep. Yeah.
It's also fun at times, of course, to talk some Purdue football. Nathan Barrett's here to talk Purdue with us from the Indianapolis Star. Nathan, on short notice, I appreciate you stopping by.
Of course, I would have immediately responded if I known I was going to be here with Steve and Gerd. Like that was going to be, that was all you really had to say.
Nathan, how many years did you break away and do Ohio State for? Like 5 years?
5 years, 2019 through 2023.
Yep. So we know Nathan pretty well, and thankfully he's joined us today. And to get into the Purdue talk, I mean, I watched the Illinois game. And obviously I watched, the second half of the Michigan game pretty closely this past week. And to me, I mean, and of course the Rutgers game the week before, they lose on a field goal at the end. It's like, they've had games where they've been blown out, but they've also had games where they're right there neck and neck with some pretty quality opponents. So it's kind of been a mixed bag, but maybe what's your overall assessment? I mean, the record says one thing, but I think the team's a little better perhaps than the record shows.
A little better. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely accurate to say, if you're looking at this from the outside and you see the record, this team isn't winning more, especially in a Big Ten capacity, than last year's team was. But the vibe around the team and just the confidence that you see, for lack of a better term, on a game-to-game basis is so different. That last year's team was there was sort of a hopelessness that had kind of settled in. And this year, as you say, Steve, like all of the elements of winning football are there, but they just are never there at the right time. The old cliche about complementary football is never been more true, I think, than with this team, which will do so many of the right things on any given night, but they just can't calibrate it. They just can't get it to where that's going to be enough to win a Big Ten game. They really should have 2 more wins right now. I mean, they played better than Minnesota at Minnesota and lost that game. They played better in some capacities than Rutgers did, although Kalikmanis carved them up pretty good. They gave up a lot of yards in the passing game, some big chunks. But still, that was a game they should have won, and they gave it away in a pretty frustrating fashion, even by Purdue standards at the end of it. So I think the Michigan game did exemplify some things, that there's this is a better coached team than it was a year ago, even though I don't think it's a more talented team. I think this is a team that is, better organized, better structured. I think they've made some cultural adjustments that are showing up on the field. But now they did all of that and hit a point of the schedule where even their best games now is not going to be enough to beat the kind of Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, and IU.
Yeah, I thought they outplayed Michigan at times in that game, and they just could never get to the point where they had an opportunity to maybe take the lead, especially late. They didn't, Michigan led throughout that. But I think that's watching that, you're like, there's something here, but they just couldn't take advantage. Bryce Underwood throwing an interception in the red zone, Bryce Underwood fumbling the ball out of the end zone. There are opportunities, and it's like you could just see like they couldn't put it all together. They ran a little bit. The running backs ran well. You're completing a bunch of passes, a high percentage of passes. They don't necessarily go very far. And it's like you could see the semblance of something. Like I wonder, like, if that game is at Ross-Ade, do you think it's a different outcome?
Who's to say? I mean, a lot of X factors there, but really, you don't even have to go all the way to Ross-Ade. There's an alternate universe where just look at the last 2 minutes of the first half of the Michigan game. They pick Underwood off at the 5-yard line, and all the offense really has to do there is get one first down. And if they get one first down, it's going to eat up enough clock. And even if they have to still end up punting, they'll punt it back farther, and Michigan probably doesn't have time to really drive. Instead, they go 3 and out, and their punter, who has been Jack McAllister, been a very good punter. He's a veteran punter. He punted at Washington, was at Nebraska for a minute, and then came to Purdue. Has been really good all season, and he just absolutely shanks one out of bounds. It was like a 21-yard net punt, and Michigan scores in 5 plays before halftime. So instead of 7-7, it's 14-7. You take those 7 points off the board, and Purdue wins that game. Now, I mean, obviously, a lot of things maybe change in the second half. Who knows? But, those 7 points decided that game. So that's how close they are to beating a really good team. And, talking to people who cover Michigan after that game, they all were kind of like, I mean, hey, that wasn't Michigan's best game by any stretch. But there's something there. Purdue has something there. I think all along we thought this is essentially what it would look like. And I thought that 3-game stretch that they had, Minnesota, Rutgers, and Northwestern in the middle, that was where they were going to be able to win a Big Ten game. They had 2 of them won, and they got away. So 4-8 at the end of the season would look a lot different than 2-10. They've got to find a way to build some kind of momentum here in the final weeks that they can carry into not just next season, but into the offseason. They've got to start some proof of concept for the kind of players that they want to attract through the transfer portal to take this up a notch next year.
Well, and that's good. Sorry, Mark.
Well, I was just going to say, Nathan, can we liken this to, let's say, Greg Schiano comes back to Rutgers, and a historically horrible program who lost 21 consecutive games in the Big Ten, usually 50-7 every week, suddenly becomes capable, competent, and that seems to have happened here at Purdue.
It's funny you mentioned that, because going into last week, something that I was telling people was, Stephen Gerd will remember this, in 2020, the COVID year, Rutgers, that was Schiano's first year back, they came to Ohio Stadium, and you remember that they had a bunch of stuff dialed up that was special teams, trick plays, and other gimmicks and stuff like that. And I thought Purdue might actually have to take more of that approach at Michigan to have a chance to win. They've done some of those things this year. They've done some creative things, some trick plays where they throw the ball out to Ryan Brown, the quarterback, in space. Some of them worked, some have not. They've tried some of those, a little bit of that stuff at Michigan. It's been I thought there is some correlation there, because Ryan Walters, for all the things he is in football that are good, I just don't think was ready and didn't have the structure around him to succeed as a first-time head coach with the talent he had available. And I think what Barry Odom has come in and done is stabilize things. They're not winning as much as they want to. It's really grinding on them. They had higher aspirations in this for how much they would win, but you can see a more stable foundation being set here. And I think it is something they can build on. But I think when you also look realistically across all 22 starting spots, there isn't a position that they can't upgrade in the portal this winter. And they've got to find more Big Ten football players to start winning Big Ten football games.
When you look at the schedule that they've got left, it does not look like there's going to be a win there. But I agree. When you talk with Barry Odom, there's direction there, and when you've got that's great. I just is the support around him from the program and the boosters, and how much of Indiana's success has bolstered the idea that we have to do something at Purdue. Like if Indiana can do it, we can do it. Is there any of that there?
That has probably changed the way everybody in college football looks at these rebuild situations to some extent. And I don't know if it's completely fair. There were a lot of things that Curt Cignetti is the outlier, right? Like
Yes.
in what happened at IU. Like that's not normal. What's happening at Purdue right now is a little more normal. You hit rock bottom last year, and you have to make incremental steps to get back to being good, even with the transfer portal. I mean, you had to flip over this, and they brought in 50 some new players, right? Like it's a completely new roster, and very few people that are still here from even last season, let alone that have like a long footing in the program. So I do think that has probably colored a little bit what has gone on at Purdue these last 2 years, because IU was just rocketing into the stratosphere at the same time. But I think in someone like Barry Odom, they got someone who is probably, has been through this, and he just did it at UNLV. He went to a place, UNLV was just a football wasteland, more or less. Like, no offense to the guys who played there, but like from a winning standpoint, they'd never won anything. Like they had Randall Cunningham for like that little blip and then nothing else. And Barry Odom came in there and made them nationally relevant, like almost overnight. Like that was a team that won 9-10 games each of the last 2 years, and having to do it the same way, like, with the portal. Now, I think that's harder to do in the Big Ten. You have to get a higher level of player to have the same level of success. And to do that on the fly is a little bit difficult. So I do think they are resourced enough. Mike Babinski, the AD, has made a commitment that they're going to fully participate in rev share. It sounds like football is getting as much of that roughly proportionally, at least from what we've heard, that every other Big Ten program probably is, more or less. Purdue probably does give a little bit more to basketball for good reason than maybe some of the programs do. But I don't think it's necessarily a matter of resources. From talking to the coaches this summer, when I was doing some reporting about how they were sort of setting the foundation for the 2026 recruiting class, the thing that kept coming back to me, like, well, what's your biggest obstacle? It wasn't resources, or facilities. It's 1-11, like the stigma of 1-11. They've got to find a way to distance themselves from that. I think that's hard to do without having now let one of those wins or two of those wins get away in that middle third. And now they've got to find a way in these final 4 games. I don't know if they can win them, but if they can sort of replicate the competitiveness that they showed against Michigan, don't have one of these games where it's 42-0 at halftime. We also have seen Ohio State do that to even good teams in the past. I'm thinking of the Michigan State in 2021, like other examples. Like, you can't just get blown off the field. You've got to come out and when there's red zone opportunities, execute those. They haven't been good there. They've got to limit explosive plays. That's hard to do when you're playing the best football players, best passing game in college football. Like, it's a challenge, but I think they're showing some important things through the way that they have competed. There's only been like maybe the second half of the Notre Dame game where they didn't maybe look like they belonged. Every other game, even if there's been some separation there, Illinois, USC, whatever, it's looked like they belong. They're just not ready to win.
Yeah. Ryan Brown, the quarterback, just what sets him apart, and what, if he's playing his best football, like what is he doing? And obviously losing a great athlete and a great player like Devin Mockabee out of the lineup. He just is kind of a glue guy that needs somebody to make a play. He just goes and makes a play. It felt like watching them, but that makes Brown's life probably a little bit more difficult too, I would think.
Yeah, I was trying to think of who I would equate it to in recent Ohio State history, losing someone like Devin Mockabee, because I don't know if he changes the outcome at Michigan. He was their starting running back. Maybe that would have made a difference, but it's more just a guy who's put that much into a program and meant that much. And especially in his case, a guy who stuck around at Purdue when a lot of people didn't. Came as a walk-on, worked his way as a scholarship player. Like, you want those guys to end their careers on their own terms, right?
Like Xavier Johnson.
Injured. Yeah, that's the, yeah. So,
with the impact of Smith-Njigba going out.
Yeah.
So
maybe, yeah. So, like, those are two good examples. Like, so with Ryan Brown, he is a better football player than he is a quarterback at this point. And that's not really a criticism, because it's harder to be a good quarterback than it is just to be a good football player, I think. And you see the tools there. He's very potentially deadly for a defense when you flush him, when he gets, when the pocket closes. That's when he can freelance a little bit with his running ability. He is faster than you might think, and for his size, that works really well as a quarterback. He has some skill in the passing game. I think that still needs to be developed, especially decision making and awareness and things like that. I think those are still coming along. Frankly, his receiving core has not helped him very much. We saw that in preseason camp, that they were afflicted with a lot of drops that carried into the regular season. They just haven't been able to figure that out. Their best tight end, really their only receiving threat as a tight end, is a guy named George Burhan, who's been hurt most of the season. They haven't had him available, haven't had one of their other veteran receivers available, Delano Morissette. So they're a little bit limited in the receiving core, and I think there have been times when the passing game has been better than it looks, but they just haven't been able to sync that up. So now they have been mixing in this other guy, Malachi Singleton, an Arkansas transfer. Mm-hmm. He comes in and runs sort of like a package. And at first, that was more just like a goal line package where they were bringing him in to almost exclusively run the ball. They've opened that up a little bit, I think, as teams adjusted to that, and they are letting him throw the ball a little bit more. So that's a wrinkle that you should look for in short yardage situations, even in the between the 20s, but definitely on the goal line. It's a thing that they'll go to a lot, either that or a running back in the Wildcat.
If I'm not mistaken, they got a touchdown out of him against Michigan that was called back, correct?
Yeah, and that drive was really interesting. It was a 9.5-minute touchdown drive, and there were a lot of things that happened on that drive that normally would have sunk a Purdue drive. Like they had a first down holding penalty that made it 1st and 20 around midfield and took them out of field goal range if they didn't get the first down. They overcame that. They had a touchdown wiped off the board. They overcame that. They got some help from a PI and I think another penalty in there. But that was a little bit of a turning point, at least in that game. Will it be a turning point for what this offense does the rest of the season? That's way too early to say that. But that was an example of sort of the resiliency that this team has shown, even when it's not as talented as last year's team and when the results haven't gone in their favor.
We've got a super chat question coming in from our guy, Ryan. Ryan, thank you so much for the contribution. So you guys can team up on this one. Question for the Purdue segment. Based on Purdue's offensive tendencies, what Buckeye defender will have a big day? So we'll go offensive tendencies with Nathan, and then you guys can step up with an Ohio State defender.
It's a great question. I think that their running game has a potential to be pretty competent. Like they've run the ball okay at times, even without Devin Mockabee. They're two running backs they have in there now. Malachi Thomas, who's a Virginia Tech transfer, and Antonio Harris, who's a second-year guy from Purdue. They ran the ball okay. They used them out of the backfield a little bit. I'm assuming that Purdue, much like it did last week at Michigan, will take a game plan to where they try to control the game a little bit and shorten the game and get those yards on the ground if they can. I think where they get in trouble is, as any team will, when it's 3rd and long. Are they or just any sort of conventional passing down? Are they getting competent play from the receiving core, whether on routes or catches? And what sort of decisions is Ryan Brown making in those moments? Because there have been times where he's done, like I said, great things. Like he's shown real good football player decision making. The quarterback decision making is still they're in the process of refining that.
I'm going to go with two guys, Arvell Reese, who has 4.5 sacks in the last 4 games, and Kenyatta Jackson, who's had 3.5 sacks in the last 3 games. Those two guys, to me, if they can continue to do what they've been doing, and Reese is not necessarily a pass rusher. He a lot of times is the spy on the quarterback, and then when the quarterback is not running or it's not a running play, he will come on a delayed blitz and really wreak some havoc sometimes. And Kenyatta Jackson has done a great job getting off blocks and just making plays. So Purdue's pass protection, I think, is going to be stressed a little bit by those two guys. And then on the back end, I'm trying to think if anybody's due for an interception. Caleb Downs had a rare one the other day. It's been at the end of the game, no less, to end the game, basically. Ohio State doesn't pick off a lot of passes, and Brown has, I think, only thrown 6 in 7 or 8 games, whatever it is. So maybe Jermaine Matthews back there gets his hands on one. I don't know. They're probably the three guys that I would look at.
Yeah. I'm never going to say don't keep an eye on Arvell Reese, and Kenyatta Jackson has been playing great. Caden Curry, Indiana native, he's going to be all over that defensive line, playing inside and outside. But I think Michigan got after Ryan Brown a couple times. I think Derek Moore had 2 sacks and TJ Guy had maybe 1. Overall, though, I think they've given up Purdue's only given up 16 sacks this season. Have they done pretty well, or is it just getting the ball out quickly and running the ball?
Well, some of it is having quarterbacks are as mobile as they are. I think there's been times where we've felt that Brown is pressured more as you're watching a game kind of anecdotally than the number of times teams take him down. Some of that is, again, his size and speed play into that. But, they also will, like I said, at times it's either short passes out of the backfield. It's the running game. They're not a team like some of the Purdue teams you faced in the past where they're throwing, 40, 50 times a game. The Jeff Brom era, this is a little bit more balanced. So you'd have to break it down by the percentages. It doesn't feel like they've had a ton of sacks. I don't know where that would rank in terms of sack percentage, how much you're giving up. But the offensive line has been shaky at times. They've made some changes there that have stabilized things a little bit. I think that's shown up a little bit more in terms of how well they're running the ball than in pass protection. The key for pass protection for them, though, sometimes is what are they getting from the running backs? And there's been a lot of variance in that this season.
And one last question for me. Rondale Moore will not be playing. Is this correct? He will not be at the game.
Rondale Moore, unfortunately, is not playing for anyone this year. I believe he missed another year with injury. That's just one of the what ifs, not just in Purdue history, but really college football history. That 2018 game was just such a revelation, I think, for the country as to what he was. And then as a true freshman, and it just never got back to that same level for him. So it's unfortunate, but no, I mean, Ohio State fans know Purdue has been sort of a bugaboo in the past 20 years, as much as any non-Michigan Big Ten team has been. But how has Purdue beaten Ohio State over the years? It's by having maybe the best football player on the field, at least for that given day, like a future NFL talent. So Rondale Moore, Ryan Kerrigan, guys that. Yeah, guys like that who get on the field and just sort of tear people up. Those guys are rare at any level, but especially at Purdue. And I don't see that person on this roster, but maybe they reveal themselves on Saturday.
Ohio State couldn't escape Rondale Moore. They got to Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game, and on one of the sides of the buildings, Purdue had put up a huge banner with Rondale Moore and a couple of the Ohio State guys trying to tackle him futilely. And so even in the artwork, the guy was a legend. So
yeah.
Nathan, you bring up NFL production. I don't know that it would hold true right now because of the last 3 or 4 NFL drafts, but it might be lost on a lot of people that Purdue's generally been in the top 10 of college football NFL producing schools in the last, 25, 30 years.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit of a storyline from our side on Saturday, because what better judge of where you are in terms of NFL talent than to play Ohio State, the program that is even higher on that list on every single year. You're expecting 10, 12, 15 guys from even teams that don't win national championships at Ohio State. So depending on the classes and how they line up. So I think it's been already a topic of conversation this week, that I think that if you're coaching a team like Purdue, you got guys, especially guys who came here for 1 year from the portal, that have at least fledgling professional aspirations. Well, go out and put something on film against guys who everybody knows are NFL players. What do you do when you're lined up against guys who are going to be first or second day NFL players? Show that you belong, at least getting a pick in the third round or the third day, or that you have, some reason to make scouts take notice.
Yeah. Scouts are going to see him in this game one way or the other.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys?
No, I think Nate, well, go ahead, Tim.
I would say defensively for Purdue, what do you expect to happen?
They have some players who I think defensive interior, I think they've got some talent. They lost actually one of their better ones, TJ Lindsey, early this season. they've had a couple other guys step up there and start playing well. Ian Jeffries, D'Amico Kennedy, like Jamarian Harkless. They've got some defensive line talent, and they've got a couple of veteran linebackers behind that in Manny Powell, Charles Correa, two guys who came from playing together at UNLV and have been somewhat steady for them there, pretty reliable. It's the secondary where they just have it's kind of a prove-it game. You can go look at the numbers that they've given up this year. The Illinois game and what Altmaier did in that game, what Rutgers did to them, what even Notre Dame and Jade Mayava from USC did. Like, go just look at the passing numbers compared to how many attempts they had to throw to get those passing yards. Like, it's pretty stark. And they've had some other games that have looked better, but when they've played the lower tier passing offenses in the Big Ten, your Northwesterns, your Minnesotas, it's looked better. So this is a big moment, I think, for these guys in secondary, especially, frankly, the veteran ones like Tony Grimes, cornerback, who Ohio State fans probably remember him from when he was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. Some other guys they have back there. Like, this is a bit of a moment for them to sort of step up and as they're coming to the close of their careers, say, this is what we want to be remembered for, not those games where we were kind of getting blown off the field.
We're allowed to throw Michigan in that low-tier pass offense category. I think we can do that.
I think that
here.
was shown last week, frankly. Although they ran the ball well enough that it didn't matter.
I love when people put these highlights up on Twitter. They say, I have never seen a freshman play like this. And it's some ball that's 5 yards high and wide. It's just like, Jesus. 10 million for this?
He is talented, but we've seen a little regression the last few weeks. So you're going to have that with a true freshman, no doubt. Nathan, let folks know where they can find your work.
Yeah, at NW Baird on Twitter, IndyStar.com, and looking forward to having all my former buddies, my former colleagues from the Woody back to Ross H Stadium on Saturday.
Are you covering basketball as well at the same time?
I am, yeah. I was there last night for the season opener. They've got a game Friday night as well, so a lot of back and forth from here.
Who is their first big challenge to the number one ranking, like in a few weeks or whatever?
Yeah, next week they play at Alabama. That's a second half of a home and home. Alabama came up here last year, so they're going down to Alabama next week. Trakoff and Wren didn't play last night.
I was going to say.
Yeah, they don't think that's long term. I think they expect him back by Alabama at the latest, maybe even by Friday. But that would be a tough guy to miss as you're going in to play a team the caliber of Alabama. But Purdue's schedule is very tough in the non-conference, and they play Iowa State, they play Auburn, a lot of tough games. So that makes it a fun team to cover because you're getting to see really strong games throughout the year.
And they'll be at Ohio State for a Sunday CBS game, I think, in late February. Yeah, Saturday or Sunday. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun that day, hopefully.
Appreciate you.
And a lot of fun this Saturday, too. 1 p.m. start on Big Ten Network. We have our own internal text thing, and that came across, and Tony's like, I don't believe that's even possible. Is it 1 o'clock? What is this?
Those of us who have to cover a basketball game on Friday night are glad it's at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
That's the only time I've ever been glad it's not a noon kickoff.
Isn't this just a noon kickoff for you guys now? Or are you not? Are you on the same time zone as we are right now?
We're Eastern time zone, westernmost state in the Eastern time zone. So it stays light until like 10 o'clock in the summer.
Is that like Big Ten volleyball getting in the way? Something like that?
I don't know. I don't know.
We couldn't figure it out. There wasn't anything obvious on the BTN schedule. I don't know if it was just a solid that they were throwing the other networks to not have Ohio State start
to not counter program them.
BTN. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
All right, Nathan. Well, enjoy
thanks
the
again.
games coming up. Yeah,
Good.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, safe travels this weekend, guys.
Yep.
All right, good stuff. Talking Boilermakers. They're one of those teams that I secretly root for. Not on Saturday, of course, but
they're harmless generally. And other than the 5 times since 2000 they've beaten Ohio State over there, but sometimes, I mean, you walk in there and it's a little bit of a hornet's nest. They have about 60,000 fans when it's full, and it can get, a little bit loud over there, but the enthusiasm for Purdue football, just it's kind of come and gone over the years. And they've had some good coaches who brought it back, and we'll see if Odom can can be in that ilk, or if he's going to be more like his predecessor and just not get much accomplished.
I went to the Purdue game in '96 when I was a student. And that was the year. It was '96 or '98 when Purdue went up 14-0. And we're sitting around the Purdue fans, and they're very, very happy. And they'd look back at us and be like, just let us enjoy this part of the game. We know what's going to happen. Just
I think it ended up 42-14, didn't it?
something like that. And
Yeah.
they knew it was happening, but they hit like 2 long passes in the first
Yeah.
quarter, and they're very, very happy. And they're just
And
like,
the line was like 27 points, and Ohio State won 42-14. And we come into the interviews afterward, and Bruce Hooley from the Plain Dealer says to Archie Griffin, who was overseeing football as an assistant athletic director at the time, he says, "Well, Arch, you covered." And that was about all we could say about it, because there wasn't a whole lot more redeeming about it that day. And Archie just kind of just shook his head. And I think everybody knew that, that team didn't have a dynamic offense in '96. And of course, they lose the Michigan game a few weeks later, 13-9. So yeah, it was inevitable. I think we all knew at some point it was coming, but oh well.
All right. Before we head on out, any parting shots on the initial CFP rankings?
I thought 1 through 5 are exactly how I had it. I had Oregon ahead of the 2 Big 12 teams, who are ahead of them, BYU and Texas Tech. The chairman last night, was it Mac Rhodes, I believe? He joked, well, we did that to help set up the ESPN thing. And then, of course, people go on Twitter and say, see, they're helping ESPN. And I'm like, no, you dumbass, that's tongue in cheek. Everybody knew it was humor. They obviously believe in those teams, and whatever. BYU's undefeated, so whatever. But that one, to me, Oregon, just from the eye test, whatever. I mean, they lose at home to Indiana, but have played pretty well otherwise. And then Notre Dame is 8 spots ahead of Miami. They both have 2 losses, and Miami beat Notre Dame head-to-head. Miami's losses are Louisville and SMU, which I don't think there's a disgrace losing to either of those 2 teams. SMU on the road, they had 5 wins, I think.
Overtime.
Yeah. They had 5 wins, I think, going into that game, so that's not a disgrace. And so I don't get people. I like Notre Dame. I'm not trying to be a Notre Dame hater, but I just want to see it. 25-10 against Boston College just isn't it to me. So I need to see a little bit more out of it before I'd put them in my top 12. And then down at the bottom, Tennessee, the only 3-loss team. They're in the AP poll, certainly. But, I've got Memphis ahead of them. I think you could make a case, for some other teams. South Florida, potentially, probably has better wins than Tennessee. I don't even know who Tennessee's best win
Illinois
is.
has better wins than Tennessee does.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Tennessee doesn't have a win over a team that's currently in the rankings.
No,
now they played
not even close.
3 top 10 teams or whatever, or Tennessee. Alabama, Georgia, and who's their other loss?
They lost to, oh my goodness, they just lost to Oklahoma.
Yeah, this past week. So
the losses aren't bad, but they haven't beaten anyone.
Yeah.
They haven't beaten anybody, and they probably aren't going to be.
Here's a stat for you. I can't update it because this is before last weekend's games, but I don't think it got any better. Tennessee's wins are against teams that were 1-17 in their conference. Syracuse, Mississippi State, Kentucky,
Arkansas.
Well, not Kentucky.
Like a 3-point win over Arkansas.
Yes.
I mean, and people are giving them grief why they didn't have Texas A&M ahead of Indiana or Ohio State. And I said, I don't see anywhere on Ohio State or Indiana's card where they beat a 2-4 team by 3 points. I don't see that anywhere. I don't see that anywhere on either team's record. So correct me if I'm wrong, Sandy, but I don't see that, with Ohio State. And with Alabama, people are like, oh, they've won this, they've won that, they've done this, they've done that. I said, well, the Florida State loss, 2 touchdowns, negates one of the 4 quality wins. So now you're back down to 3 quality wins, and it is what it is. But Ohio State has more than held its own, and I think over time it's going to be proven out that they deserve whatever it is they get. So
the one question I would love to hear of the committee that I've never heard, I don't know that it's ever been asked, maybe it has and I just missed it, is does the season get weighted as it goes along? And this would have been the perfect question last night with the Miami Notre Dame situation, because you can't tell me that it's 6-2 versus 6-2, that if Miami would have won that game last weekend against Notre Dame, that Notre Dame would be number 10 in the country and Miami would be 18. So clearly that gets suppressed because it was the first week of the season.
Yeah, the recency bias creeps in there. He said last night, no, we look at an entire body of work is what he tried to say. But then he also came back, talked out of the other side of his mouth and said, well, we like the way they're trending, so it's kind of like, see, it didn't bother me in the NCAA tournament selections when they looked at last 10, because you want the teams that are playing the best at that time of the year. They took that out a few years ago and asked the committee not even subconsciously to look at who's done the best here down the stretch. But that didn't, as a tiebreaker, I wouldn't rank one over the other. If they're dead even, and you've used all your variables to say they're dead even, then maybe I would say one comes ahead of the other just a notch because they're playing better right now. But that's it, to me.
Yeah. Well, in terms of head to head, like at what point is it okay to move past head to head? Do they have to have
It's just one
records?
data point. I grant you, it's just one of your 12 data points.
Like, Florida State is not in contention to be ahead of Alabama. So at what point does head to head no longer matter? Is it when the records are different? For me, it's like once you have multiple losses, you have taken away your ability to argue
or say anything about where you end up.
And like you are now you're putting your hands in somebody else's fate with multiple losses. And clearly there's no intention to have the head-to-head even come into contact with each other, because they're not comparable teams right now because they're so far away. They're not in the same grouping. So they're never going to be a head-to-head, because Notre Dame is not going to be as low as Miami in their ranking. So they would never be like, and they group these in clusters of 3, and they go from there. Even in the AP poll, Notre Dame's 10, Miami's 18. So like the voters everybody has moved on from that head to head. And I was surprised that it was as moved on as it is, but it's just like, let's just rip the Band-Aid off now and never come back to it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that we should have moved on, though. Maybe they have moved on.
They don't like the ACC. That's another thing.
I'm going to honor the head-to-head with the same record. Like, I'm not going to elevate a 5-3 team over a 7-1 team, obviously, but I'm talking about I'm going to honor the head-to-head unless 2 things occur. Number one, the one team that lost the game, and this could be the case. Last play of the game, walk-off field goal on the road. So that's about as close as it gets from a scoring standpoint, although I think Miami was clearly the better team that night. If that losing team has such a better resume other than that game, that's not the case with Notre Dame. They don't have a great resume. They beat USC, and that's it. Then the other thing would be sometimes in rankings, and I run into this all the time, if you honor head-to-head, maybe you get boxed into a situation where you have to inaccurately rank all these other teams to accommodate like one game that clogs all this other business up. And I'm not going to, compromise the rankings based on one game.
Do not flush baby wipes. That's your great advice right there. It is interesting looking at, and I know we got to go looking at Notre Dame at 10 right now. They're not guaranteed to be in there because you're going to have 2 teams that are not in the top 10 right now that will make it in the ACC and the group of 5. However, there are also 2 Big 12 teams ahead of them that may not be ahead of them, when the time comes. So it's going to be interesting. Is there a fourth Big Ten team that can jump in there and take that from them as a 10-2 team, just like Notre Dame is a 10-2 team?
Yeah, worst case scenario for the SEC and the Big Ten is that BYU stays undefeated all the way through, arrive at the Big 12 championship game undefeated, and lose.
Mm-hmm.
So they both get in, whoever that is, Texas Tech probably. And then in the ACC, Louisville can finish 11-1 and not even make the ACC championship game, and it kind of protects them. And then you got some wild card like Duke, who actually mathematically, according to ESPN, is the best chances of winning the ACC right now. They're 6-3 because they don't play anybody, and they only have one loss in the conference, despite losing to Tulane and Illinois by 4 touchdowns.
There ought to be a rule. What are we?
See, I'm okay with
what
that.
are we doing?
Win your conference, get in.
Win your conference, yeah. Like, don't let them win.
Yes.
Send the refs. Don't let them win.
There we
Goodness.
go. All right, guys. Appreciate you being here.
Don't think we need refs this week. Ohio State big, I would think. I mean, I don't know that they're going to cover 28.5 or whatever this line is, but because I was impressed watching Purdue against Illinois, and I was impressed watching them play against Michigan. I mean, they're tough-minded at least. They're not good, but they're tough. I mean, it'll be an interesting game, I think.
Frank, I don't know what I said this hour, but I appreciate your pat on the back, and then in caps a little bit later. Thank you for that. Doreen, thanks for being here and reminding everyone, hey, go Bucks. Tony Gerdeman's at Buckeye Weekly, BuckeyeHuddle.com. Anything in particular to highlight there?
You know, we did our live show last night of reacting to the rankings. You can find that, and we also dropped a rewatch of the Penn State game and things we've learned. And then also yesterday, we also recapped stuff we heard from Ryan Day about Julian Sand. So there's like 3 shows waiting for you if you guys want to go find them. Buckeye Weekly Podcast. Steve,
I believe you're still at Bucknuts.
I am, at least for another 20 minutes. Just thankful. I mean, you think about everything that's going on right now, and to continue to have the opportunity to talk about sports and Ohio State sports in particular, a pretty good blessing, I guess. So we're going to keep on keeping on for now. And right now, I'm trying to find time to get to sneak some sleep because, as Nathan said, covering football and basketball at the same time is a lot of work. But we'll handle it. Looking forward to going out to Indiana on Friday and getting back to Purdue. I wasn't there 2 years ago, so looking forward to that.
Frank, again, thank you for all the kind comments. And Ryan reminding everyone, watch Tony's Michigan Mondays. Absolutely. All right, guys, thanks for making this happen as always. And we'll be back next week.
All right, take care.